But I think the assumption is that that is also a niche market, right? People think that, well, for the majority, it's, dads that need support and because they're the partner and the dad pad, and dads need to learn how to change nappies and all of these things, right? And they think that like two women in a relationship, oh, that's quite niche and it's two women and women know how to do babies. So why do we need to write that? And actually, we live in Margate. There's a lot of specifically same-sex female partners. We're like one of like 16 in our little like queer parents groups. There's a lot of us here. And that is a really like relevant experience of what it feels like to be, in society's terms, the other mum, and how that experience is.
Welcome to International Love Story, the podcast about intercultural relationships. Today I'm so excited to introduce you to Tash and Marthe. Tash, originally from the UK, and Marthe from the Netherlands, are the co-founders of Breaking the Distance, a platform dedicated to support LGBTQ plus couples and families. Tash is an LGBTQ plus presenter, speaker, and inclusion consultant, while Marthe is a yoga teacher and life coach in training. Together, they navigate the complexities of an intercultural relationship while raising their daughter. I'm so excited to have you here today. So let's just dive directly into it. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing? Where do you live at the moment? Tell us all about you.
So I'm Tash, the one with the English accent. So I originally am a performer, but actually now I work as a diversity and inclusion consultant, which means I support businesses, organizations in how to be better people, how to make workplaces more, I guess, inclusive for the variety of different humans that there are there. And we are currently living in Margate. For anyone who doesn't know where that is the most easterly point of the UK. It feels like we can see France from where we are. We can't, but maybe on a clear day with some good binoculars, we probably could see France. So yeah, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
So I'm Marthe. I am originally from Holland and I moved to the UK 4.5 years ago. Is it?
Yeah, 2019. Yeah. Wow.
And I'm originally a 14 years, but now working as a yoga teacher and a life coach. And the reason I moved to the UK is because of Tash. 5.5 years ago, we were in Bali. It's very good.
So yeah, over the years, obviously you've built a strong bond, and I guess parenting or parenthood also changed your relationship. What I'm mostly interested in is, how did your love story start? Like, where did you meet each other and how did it evolve from there on?
So we were both traveling in Bali separately. We were doing sort of a solo travel year of being single, exploring our own personal selves. And lo and behold, we arrive in Bali on the same day at the same resort. And yeah, it started out as a kind of getting to know each other friendship vibes. Although, I don't know, you feel differently about this one, right?
Well, when I saw Tash, I was just like, oh wow, she's fit. Immediately very interested. But I played it very sort of well, not really. But yeah, for me, it's very much connected to you on a friendship level, but I already had cheated quite quickly. But I was trying to hold back because I sort of promised myself and my parents and my friends that I wouldn't fall in love.
So fast forward, I guess 2/3 weeks, we were already very much, by the end of 2 weeks, I've kind of admitted to myself it was more than maybe just a holiday romance. And by the end of 3 weeks, I'd fully realized I was in love. And so we made I guess not an official commitment, but when I left Bali, I left Marthe in Bali to come back to the UK. And I booked a ticket for her to come and visit me in the UK when she arrived home. So that was kind of the unofficial, I guess, commitment. And then when she did arrive to visit me a couple of weeks later in the UK, that's when I made it official with, will you be my girlfriend officially? Yeah. And that was, we'd known each other then by that point, a month and a half, 6-7 weeks. Yeah. From like the 27th of January to the 1st of March. So just a month, really.
Yeah. You were head over heel in just a couple of weeks, and you were just like, okay, let's put a nail into the coffin, which you actually did like I think you are about to celebrate your second anniversary, or did you celebrate? You did celebrate your second anniversary already. So you got married 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Well, in October will be 3 years.
Oh my gosh, it will be. Yeah. October is our third marriage anniversary, and March was our together anniversary, right? Yeah. Oh my God. Married for 3 years? What?
Yeah, especially if someone who's following your journey since a while ago already, this is also a little reminder to myself how fast time is passing by, because you're sharing it, not obviously on everything, but you're sharing a lot on social media. And for everyone who's following you since a couple of months, even years already, definitely knows how much has happened over the past, especially 2 years, I feel, right? You were, not only saying we are girlfriends after 6 weeks, but also everything that happened afterwards. You moved just extremely fast.
Yeah, there's sometimes, it's only when we reflect back and we realize. So I guess for people listening, we met in January 2018. We were engaged March 2020. We got married October 2021. I became pregnant August 2022. I birthed a baby. We moved house in September 2022. I birthed a baby in May 2023. And here we are now in 2024. So yeah, when you kind of timeline our lives together, even for us, there's been these huge life-changing events have happened every single year since we've been together.
Yeah. And I think 3 things are at play when you think of it. So I think it's our age. So very much early 30s when we met. Before we even start a relationship, we all sort of said we want kids. Then we're lesbians, we're 2 women. I think when you know. So it was kind of a lot of people thought I was crazy that I was going to move to the UK after 10 months of being in a relationship with you. Also that summer, when we actually only knew each other literally 4 months, I was planning my engagement in Bali for the next year. So I just was like, yeah, this is it. And well,
I also think the other thing that plays a part is the fact that we were from 2 different countries. So whereas I guess your average couple, if you're meeting somebody that lives in the same city as you, there's probably a lot longer dating. I stay around your house for weekends, you stay around my house, we see each other during the week. And so that kind of pre-moving in stage can potentially last a couple of years comfortably, because you're in close proximity, but we didn't have that. We were long distance. And so there was very much not just the heartache of being long distance, but also the expense of being long distance, I think, super sped everything up so that you were moving in after only actually 11 months.
How did family and friends react when you told them your story?
So I think they were a bit oh, well, we'll see if it's really going to happen. But I'm all about romance. If I fall in love, I do fall hard. And I think they were just a bit wary in the beginning. In the end, they were all happy for me and said, follow your heart. And, the result is epic. So
yeah, I think, and my parents were they're always they know that I'm not impulsive. And so that if I was making this decision, it was because I really felt it was the right thing and it was true. And they will always support whatever makes me happy. So yeah, I don't remember anybody kind of second guessing us or being are you sure, or anything like that. I think your family was oh, here's typical, unsurprising for you to have a big love story, I think, for your friends and family. So yeah, I think we had full support. And then I think the other thing is people would just see us together. And then at that point, it was kind of completely understandable. And yeah, no one was then going to get in the way of it. They just got it when they kind of recognized what we were like together.
So once they saw you together, it was obvious for everyone that you guys belong together and that you're moving fast and that, yeah, it will work out. I mean, it does. And I love I love your story in general. As mentioned, I'm following you since a couple of months already, since a while already. And I think it's just very interesting to see where your journey is leading you. And in general, I'm also very curious to see what's going to be next, because I know that on site you are working on something bigger. That's your passion. I mean, you created the site Breaking the Distance for a reason, not only to get your story out there, but I think also to, and correct me if I'm wrong, encourage and support others in similar situations and to connect the community and, to break the stigma. And that's basically leading us to the project you're working on. And I'm very curious to learn a little bit more about that as well. Like, what basically brought you to the idea of getting out there with your story and telling your story, first of all, up to the point where you are nowadays when it comes to supporting the LGBTQ plus community?
Which was interesting because Breaking the Distance, our original idea with it in creation was actually it was something for us to be connected via long distance. And it was very much around, like, it was this project that we could work on. And we had a vision of, when we are together and we are traveling, we'd love to share travel. I think particularly at the time that we were creating it, 2019, this is obviously pre-pandemic, there was that was what a lot of people were doing on social media, was sharing trips and travel. And we very much wanted to do that, but specifically share it from a two women going traveling perspective. And then as we started to share, the thing that people were most interested in was the fact that we were long distance, our relationship and overcoming the challenges. And actually in the very beginning was irrelevant in some ways, the LGBTQ side of that. There was a lot of heterosexual couples who were also like, oh wow, like seeing another couple break the distance and really like make this work. And then I think as we continue to really share and open up about specific challenges of being two women in a relationship, we suddenly started tapping into an audience purely by accident who really appreciated seeing that representation online. And that was then the shift for us, that we started to consciously think about that in terms of how we were sharing things and wanting to be as on and not picture perfect Instagramming as possible, and kind of give the authentic side of what it's like to be two women in a relationship.
Yeah, and I think that passion really grew over the years. For me, I feel this massive drive to really stand up for our people from the community. Now, when I have conversations with family members that don't really understand, I can now really speak up for our community. And I just feel so passionate about it because, years and years and years ago, it was like lesbian and gays that had so much pushback and so many struggles. And now it's other members of our community. So I just want, equality for everyone, but it's just a really long, hard road.
Yeah, that. And I think I remember back in the early days, we would receive, and we still do now, maybe not as many, but we would receive messages from like, hi, I'm 15 years old and I live in some X town in, wherever. And my parents don't know that I'm gay, and I watch your Instagram and it makes me know that maybe when I'm older, it will be okay. And to used to receive those types of messages. And, recently we put out a post just asking, I think it's on stories, asking like, why do people follow us? And it was just like actually overwhelming to hear the responses. People saying, I love seeing, number one, I'm single. I want to find love. I'm a queer person. I want to find love. And you give me hope that that's out there for me, and that maybe I can find a love story like yours. Or, just seeing, for me in particular, like a person of color who is living authentically their queer life and is happy and having babies and all of those things. Because I know for myself, I never necessarily had the barrier, but I remember when I came out to my parents, I know that I think my mum had the fear of like, oh, maybe I won't get grandchildren. Oh, I'm never going to go to my daughter's wedding. And I think that there are a lot of people that still feel that for themselves, that sense of internalized homophobia of, oh, if I come out as gay or I recognize this about myself, then I have to give up on all of these hopes that I would otherwise have, and actually to be out there and say, yeah, you can find love and you can get married. And I know it's not the case for everybody, but you can have a family and all of these things. And your sexuality, your gender identity doesn't have to be a barrier, but also recognizing that there are countries, there are locations where that very legally is. And so being that for people in those locations to see that there is another way, and there are people, it is possible to live your authentic self somewhere on this planet and in places on this planet.
So whenever there is a private message, you're also quite open-minded and honest about your experience, and you give some sort of guidance as well.
Yeah, I would definitely say that we respond to almost every message and message.
Yeah, the ones that you don't need to respond to. Yeah,
that's the thing I think with social media. You never know who's watching, because sometimes when we put stuff out there and you don't really get reactions, you're like, oh, is someone even reading or listening or seeing this? But then we get those messages and you're like, okay, yeah, it is important that we share this. So that's why we're still doing it.
Yeah.
Brings me to another topic, if it's okay for you to just like at least tackle it a little bit. I don't want to go too much in depth, even though I think it's important. But I think for everyone who wants to learn more about it, can contact you directly as well, or contact me and I connect you. Unfortunately, I mean, one should think we're in 2024, and that's what you've just mentioned, that you still get those comments that are displaced. Let's phrase it like this. What are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to same-sex relationships, maybe even with your intercultural background as well, because we also talked about cultural challenges or cultural differences, which is a topic in your relationship as well. But what is it that's out there, topics you would like to tackle in order to clarify them even?
Well, it's funny that you bring that up. I think the biggest misconception of a same-sex relationship, and I'm talking about women, is that there's not necessarily, there's always like, oh, she wears the pants, or she's more of like the man in the relationship. And I think, especially nowadays, like gender and gender identity and roles are so fluid. I felt very much like, oh, I can't be as feminine as I would like to be, because I feel like Tash wants to be feminine as well. But actually, it really doesn't matter. Like, I will be more dominant in other things. Tash will be more dominant in other areas of life. But I think so many people still want to perceive us in a way of like, oh, she's definitely the man in a relationship because she's more maybe outspoken, or she maybe dresses less feminine, but it's really like not the case. And I think it's so important just to let people be free and not stereotype them in that way. But I think a lot of people are guilty of that. And I even sometimes do that when I look at other same-sex relationships from the outside. But you actually have no idea what's going on, like inside, like the household and stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. That particular topic is like last week I spent within my work delivering a lot of workshops on parental equity, and all of those sessions were the organizations wanted them in a very way, binary, male and female. Women find themselves at home, and the statistics show this, but we're a same-sex couple, right? And so already we're pushing against, like, people find it really hard to see where we fit into those roles. I say particularly now, since becoming parents, I'd say now a lot of that kind of tenfold, because there is also this kind of societal assumption that a child needs a mother and a father in order to, be a decent human in society. And actually, you see in the language that people use around our journey. So people will ask questions like, is the father going to be involved? Will your daughter know her dad when she's older? And for us, we're like, father, donor, dad, there isn't one. And so like that kind of heteronormative view of the world is still imposed on us, even, And that's from even from friends and family who fully open, know us, like are very comfortable with our relationship and our dynamic. That language and that perception is still there. It's like this bias that so many of us have naturally, that we find it really hard, and we find ourselves even falling into it and putting ourselves in, like, we'll often joke, and I'll be like, oh, I've been the man today, I've been the breadwinner today, and like we're all putting ourselves into those boxes because it's just the dynamic of the world that we live in, and we really have to consciously push against it. Definitely.
What has to happen in your opinion? I mean, that's a tricky question, and I don't think there's just one answer to it, but to break through with stereotyping, because this is what's happening. So there's a man and a woman in a relationship. The man is the family supporter. Like, that's quite backwards, but it's still in most people's heads, to be honest. Like, what does have to happen in order to break this stigma, for example?
I think it's already, I think the younger generation is definitely pushing for it, and I can really admire that. Very much dressing in the way they want to dress. Like, I feel like they're very much pushing the boundaries. Then on top of that, I think for people that haven't grown up in that way, it's just to be open-minded. Like, that's all I can say. Like, and yeah, like you said, we're guilty of it as well. So yeah, a person can be feminine and masculine. Like, doesn't matter what gender it is. Like, and you can like sort of be fluid with that. Like, one day I will feel really strong and really masculine, and maybe I don't look like that for the outside world, but I can feel it inside me. And I think it's just really important that people just stay open-minded. I agree with all of those things, and I also think that there's a certain level of, like, actually we need to unpick what are we talking about when we talk about masculinity and femininity, right? Generally, society sees masculinity is hard edges, strong, I don't cry, and femininity is soft and gentle to touch and emotional. And actually, femininity can also be strong and powerful and dynamic, right? And masculinity can absolutely be being open with your emotions. And so I think there's that whole question. And then I think there's lots of different layers to it. And this, like, again, taps into the work that I do. It's like, so I can very much go into my work head around this conversation, but there's a responsibility that happens. Like what Marthe's talking about is absolutely in our day-to-day interactions with other humans, the people around us in our immediate circles, right? But there's this other responsibility that sits at like a society level, a workplace, a corporate level, in terms of how we divide work, the processes and systems that we put into place. That so often, it's funny, like literally today and yesterday I was in the supermarket, and it's the summer holidays here in the UK already, and I'm walking around the supermarket, and like anybody who's under retirement age that's shopping, a woman, and of those women, 60% of them have a child with them. So it's like, still, it's that, even though we're living in a Gen Z who are really gender fluid and we're having these conversations, when you walk into a supermarket and you see like what is traditionally seen as a female thing, it's still that. It's still mums navigating the supermarket, doing the grocery shopping with 2 to 3 kids in tow, with no male anything like present. And I just think we still, like, there's a much broader conversation as a society to have, but I also think society can learn from the queer community massively, because we're already pushing through all of those stereotypes and those boundaries and those barriers that have been in place for hundreds of years. We're instead marginalized. So
I mean, especially with building a family, I mean, I guess that's just adding another layer, because you're parents now as well, and you're navigating through this. I'm wondering, how have your last few months been in general since having a little one? May I ask?
She's the coolest human on the planet. Parents say that all the time. I'm like, what were they talking about? Now I get it. My kid is the coolest human on the planet. Full stop.
She makes my day every single day. Like, she's just fun and loving. And, you know, I think just seeing a baby or a small child, they are just so free still. So they're very free in expressing emotions and how I experience life and we can learn so much from them as adults. Then at the same side, your whole life has changed. So you're really finding like, who am I? What do I want to do? What is my role? And how is our relationship now? How we're dividing things? How are we connection again? Those things are very much at play. But I do have to say, whilst it's been the most intense year of my life, it has really pushed me more than ever to becoming a better person. Always sounds so lame, but like really pushed me to things that I really want to do in life. And now I have this massive drive and I want to show Sutton like what is possible. And that, it's been such a like massive push for me.
It's also strange because you get so, especially in the early stages of having a baby, you are so focused on like the day to day, like the hour to hour, let alone day to day, that it's really hard to see the bigger picture. It's only now that she's almost a year and a half that we can kind of like expand out and see the bigger picture. And there's like you were saying, like I'm also really conscious, like you were saying, of like she can feel all these emotions and have all these experiences and do all these things. But I'm also really quick, like conscious of catching myself when she's doing something and I'm like saying, no, don't do that. But then like, who am I saying no for? Am I saying no because that's just what society says isn't appropriate to this moment, or outside of it being like genuinely dangerous for her to do? Like, no, that's okay. Okay, you make a bit of a mess. That's okay. And so it's like, it's really interesting. Just you see your own conditioning reflected in how you're then trying to condition this child. And so I'm really conscious of like, I kind of a little bit more, I remember, before having her, everybody knows the family or the whether it's our own family or the other family where the kids kind of run wild and free and do whatever. And like, so the first time, like, I kind of get it. Like, you don't want to confine them to the boxes and the labels that society puts on them. And you want them to be able to establish and find themselves. And so it's this really fine balance between giving structure, because actually structure can be good for all of us, but also allowing that freedom. But and I have to say, I actually recognize for my own parents, it makes me even more grateful for my own childhood and upbringing. And I think my parents did an incredible job parenting me. I need to thank them more for that, because they smashed it. They really did. I get it now. Well done, Jenny and Dave.
I love it. So you're navigating through it step by step, day by day, learning a lot while doing so. This is what I understand. Is there a specific source, book, anything you can recommend, any guideline you had while raising a kid?
Oh, so I think I'm going to speak purely from a mum perspective, or from the mum who birthed. There were two very good books that I have read. One is called Newborn Mother, and it's literally like we talk about this newborn child, this newborn baby, and that's a lot of the focus, but actually a mother is born that day as well. And actually it's applicable, to be honest, to any parent, to be fair, but obviously it's written from a maternal perspective. And then the other book that I'm almost finished is called Matrescence. And Matrescence is the biological, sociological, physiological transition, emotional transition of becoming a mother, and talks about the physiology and all the things that are happening. But I found it incredibly useful to read. I would actually say, somebody asked me the other day, like, when should I read this book? And I know people who have read it whilst they're pregnant. It's a bit of a horror story if you read it when you're yet to have, but I think it's very comforting to read once you've had a baby and you've kind of got out of the myth, to understand some of the things that maybe you've experienced or are experiencing in that transition. And then I know that I feel like you've like followed a lot of people in terms of your resource.
Everything is written around pregnancy, birth month, and labor, after, what happens in the body, hormones, everything. Like, I haven't had that.
Yeah, I just bought, I haven't recommended it because I haven't yet read it, but it's literally called The Queer Parent, and it speaks from every different type of queer parent.
Because it's just, I think especially as a woman that wants to be pregnant and have that experience, I haven't read much because I just felt, I don't know.
But I think the assumption is that is also a niche market, right? People think that, well, for the majority, it's, dads that need support, and because they're the partner and the dad pad, and dads need to learn how to change nappies and all of these things, right? And they think that like 2 women in a relationship, oh, that's quite niche, and it's 2 women, and women know how to do babies, so why do we need to write that? And actually, we live in Margate. There's a lot of specifically same-sex female partners. We're like one of like 16 in our little like queer parents group. So there's a lot of us here. And that is a really like relevant experience of what it feels like to be, in society's terms, the other mum, and how that experience is.
Yeah, I will be super interested to read that because I followed people, and I was in conversation with someone actually from Breaking Conditions. She was like, I can put you into this group, this WhatsApp group where we all share, because we're not the biological parent. And they were sort of sharing stories that they couldn't really connect to their baby or child, and I was like, I don't want to feel like that either. So I sort of removed myself from that group as well, because I couldn't connect to that part as well, because like from the moment Fatima was born, yes, my relationship has involved and has had a different journey than yours, but I very much felt like I just want to be free in my love for her, and I don't want to have then that perception of like I'm the other mom, so I don't have that same love in that way. So I also removed myself from that. So I just always felt a bit alone.
Who knows? I know, and I actually think what will be interesting is the future plans that we will have a second, and actually Marthe will carry the second. So I will be in the same experience to a certain extent as what she's going through now. She will be birthing mum to our second. I will be other mum, partner. And so I think it would be really interesting, like, though, like it's 2 sides of the same experience, and the fact that that's actually quite unique. A lot of same-sex women couples, there is one partner who carries the children and the other chooses not to. And if the other does, it's more a case of like, that was the only option. It's like you actively want to birth a child and be a birthing mum. And that's quite rare in terms of the same-sex couples that we've spoken to. It's very much one who wants to carry and one who very much doesn't.
And I'm also very interested because you have had the experience of like birthing a child. So like feeling that instant love, how that is going to be with you with having that experience. I didn't have any of that. So I am also curious.
What will I love Sutton more than our second? You're my favourite. No, parents say that it isn't a favourite. Yeah, I do have a favourite. It's you. No, I don't think it will be that at all, babe. I think we will love both children equally.
Plans you're gonna grow your family. What else do you have in mind for the future?
Well, I guess by the time everyone's listening to this, we will have announced it, but we are in the process of saving to buy a van. We're going to move into a van for like just under a year, I guess, and travel around Europe, us to Sutton, and sometimes Ted. He might be with us some of the time, and that's our dog, by the way, not our random other child, and spend some time with the grandparents. But so what will that be? That would be like year number 6. We moved into a van and travelled around Europe. Year number 7, we had baby number 2. We moved to Holland. And the minute those kids are old enough to like take care of themselves and can remain at home on their own, we're like off even more. See you later, kids. Here's 50 quid. You've got a phone with an app on it. You can order food. You'll be able to do even more by then. We're like, bye.
Sure. Yeah, but I love that you take it step by step without really knowing where you'll end up in the future. And honestly, 99% of the couples and individuals I'm talking to, they feel that way and they're totally fine with it. I mean, in the beginning, it might just be because, I mean, at least out of my experience, I had this vision because everyone around me would settle, buy a house or whatever. And I'm still figuring things out while I go. But I think that's the most beautiful part of all of this, that you are free to choose your next chapter. And by the way, I don't know if you know, but we also did a van tour of 1 year in a camper. It was different than expected, to be honest, but it was beautiful. And we are very, very happy that we did that.
All right, love this. We'll be coming to you for tips then, definitely. Yeah, I think for us, it's always been like, we've always had like a rough plan of like we knew we wanted to get married, we knew we wanted to have children, but how we were going to get there has always kind of been very fluid. Yeah, and I think what you do really, I mean, what I've learned is that nothing is for certain. So like you can say, okay, I'm gonna now live in the same place for like the next 50 years, but there's no control. Like we always think we are so much control, but we actually don't. So I think to be fluid with it, the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So again, for everyone who is listening and or watching right now, check out their Instagram profile. I'm going to link everything in the side notes, the description, as well as in the description of the YouTube video. I would like to come slowly to an end because I know time is running out. I don't want to take too much of your time, especially now that you have a little one. One last question for everyone who's listening. What's your biggest advice?
What's the meaning of life? I think I'm just going to bring it down to like, I guess, my biggest advice, go, you go first.
When it comes to relationship, I'm not, there's something, of course, something really wrong, like cheating, abuse, anything. But when it comes to relationships, like you have to keep on working for it. And I read this quote the other day and it stuck with me. Like, grass is not greener on the other side. You have to water your own grass. And I think it's so true because the first year you have all those hormones in love hormones, everything, and everyone, like it just happens that will get less. So to create those moments of romance and understanding and love and respect, you have to keep on coming back to each other and have open conversations. I think being honest with each other, don't prop anything up because it will come out. You will maybe resent each other. So open, honest conversations and keep on bothering. Love that, like quote as well. I'm going to go a little bit broader and think about in terms of just like, I guess, happiness. I think my biggest thing is, I guess, being like, it's actually a lot of what you were saying. Like we can sometimes have goals for ourselves and a version of what we think happy is and or what we're trying to achieve. And it's really interesting with all the things that we've done. Actually, recently, I've been working with a life coach of my own and like kind of just, you know, she asked right at the beginning, the top sort of session of like what is it that I wanted to get out of it? And I think a lot of people are often looking for that, like, oh, if I get here, then I'll be happy. If I get here, then I'll be happy. And I was like reflecting in the past couple of days of like, actually, I'm like really happy where I am. And that's not because I've got everything that I aspire to be, but actually just really recognizing that in the moment, like day to day, there are things that actually you can be really grateful for it and bring you that. And it's interesting. I was watching something the other day and it's another quote where this guy, it's like a story about a fisherman who's like in this little fishing village and he goes out to fish and he comes back and he brings lots of fish and there's like an American guy who's like a tourist there and he's like, oh wow, you got lots of fish, why don't you go out and get some more? And he's like, well, you know, I'm gonna bought some fish, I'm gonna feed my family, I'm gonna like sit and play with my grandchildren this evening and then like sit on the beach and relax. He's like, well, why don't you go and fish some more and then I can get you a boat and then, you know, you can build your business and you can have an international business and then when in like 20 years time you can retire and then when you've retired you'll have all this money. He's like, and then what do I do with all the money? He's like, well then, you know, then you can get a house, a small little island where you could like fish in the morning and then play with your grandchildren in the afternoon and sit on the beach in the evening. And he's like, so why do I want to work? And so I think it was like a real like trigger of remembering like it's great to have goals and aspirations and things that you want to do, but just remember like, why are you doing them? Are you doing it to get to a destination that doesn't really exist? And so, yeah, I think it's just a really important thing to keep in mind in terms of finding that contentment and that happiness. It's just like, what is your why? And if there isn't really one, if it's because somebody else is doing it or because I think I'm supposed to do it, don't bother. Let it go. Do something different. I think you like said something amazing there. And I think gratitude is so important. Pause.
You think I just said something amazing there?
Gratitude, the key to happiness, honestly. Like you said, we always feel like we have so many things that we don't have. We always work for a moment of, there's already so many things you do have. And gratitude when you go wake up or go to sleep, I think is a really good tool to help with that.
I agree. I don't have anything to add. I would like to end the podcast right here because I think that was just perfect. I'm thinking about it. So once we end here, I'll take that with me as well and I'll think about it. It's very true. Very, very true. So thank you. I can't speak anymore so much for your time today. Thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your love story and sharing a little bit of your life, of where you're at, where you want to go, where you see yourself. And again, I enjoyed talking to you. I wish we could have go in depth on the one or the other topic, but there's always the possibility to connect with you directly. And for everyone who's listening or watching right now, definitely go ahead. Don't be shy. And I think that was just an amazing conversation. And again, I enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And anyone who's listening, you can also listen to our podcast, which is Broken Distance Podcast, where you can hear a lot of what we've spoken about, definitely in depth, particularly the most recent thing. So please come and check us out and send us a message.
Thank you so much for watching and or for listening to today's podcast episode. I'm so sorry for the quality of the audio in between. Sometimes if you have guests on the other side of the world, it's not very predictable how good the audio quality will be. But I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like what I'm doing, please subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else, leave a 5-star review. That would help me a lot. I also have some news I would like to share. Not only do I have a group for women in intercultural relationships, I now have a group as well on school for couples in intercultural relationships. It's all for free. Feel free to check it out. I'm going to link everything in the side note of the podcast as well as in the description of the video. And see you next time. Bye.